And it looks like our runners are off. Now, Metroid Fusion has a few things you need to be aware of. First one is the text in the game. Each of our runners are playing on the English version, which is a little bit slower text than the Japanese version. So they're going to lose a bit of real time on that, but the main thing I want to be aware of is actually proper text mashing. If either runner falls behind in their text mashing, they can lose time over the other, even without worrying about just play. So both of our runners want to be very aware of how quickly they're text mashing so as to not fall too far behind. If our runners have advanced past the main, or going into the main deck area here. Now, in the main deck area, they're going to be doing a few things. They're going to be fighting the first enemy of the game, which is really straightforward. And they're also going to be going to get the missile upgrade and fight the first boss. But before they do that, they have to walk through a little bit of text here. Now, if all goes well, they should be able to kill this enemy pretty much immediately. Looks like both runners had a good 2 shots on the enemy there. So now they're going to be going to get the missile upgrade. Now, for the missile upgrade, they're going to have to go up a little elevator, go through a few rooms, and once they get there, they're going to be able to get the upgrade from what are called data rooms, and we're going to see them get most of the upgrades from those rooms. And the main important thing about missiles is how effective they are at killing enemies, especially early on in the game. Early on, since they don't have the charge beam yet, and they won't be getting it until the end of Sector 1, having missiles is very helpful because a lot of enemies won't be killed in one hit with your beam. So they're actually going to want to use the missiles as much as possible. However, you don't have a whole lot of them starting out, so our runners are going to have to make sure they manage their missiles properly. Now, this is mitigated somewhat because whenever they after they get missiles, they notice each of the enemies will either give them a health drop or a missile drop whenever they kill them. And if you have full health, you'll always get missile drops. And if you have full missiles, you'll always get health drops. If you don't have full of either, it'll just you'll just get one or the other. Ideally, our runners want to stay at full health, so that way they always get missile drops, but it's easier said than done. So our runners are just about to go get the upgrade, and they'll be hitting it very soon. And after that, they're going to be going to fight the first boss of the game, which is Arachnus. Now we'll see who's first person to get missiles here. Looks like MetroidMaster is just a little bit ahead of slenderMax right now. Now you may have noticed our runners actually shot a beam right before they landed from a jump. This is called a shoot cancel. They'll try and do this throughout the run, and what it does is it makes it so that you land a few frames faster than you normally would. So by doing this throughout the run, they can actually land from jumps quicker, and they can save just a few frames every once in a while. And while it may only be a few, they add up over time, and you can save a lot of time just on doing that alone. So for the first boss fight of this game, it's called Arachnus, but before they get there, they're going to have to deal with what's called an eye door. Eye doors are little annoying enemies that will either open their eye to be shot at, or they'll shoot a beam at you. And you have to deal with them before most of the boss fights. Now, each eye door can shoot between 0 to 4 beams for each time it opens its eye. But early on in the game, you can't one-hit kill the eye doors, so you have to shoot them 3 times with missiles. Now, luckily, both runners got pretty favorable luck there, but the eye doors can be really annoying. And there's usually, you saw slenderMax and MetroidMaster try and go for a trick called a double, which allows them to actually take out the eye door in less than the regular number of hits by hitting it with 2 missiles at once. Fortunately, neither of them were able to get it, but they got really good luck anyway, so it didn't become a problem. And now both runners have gotten the missile upgrade. Or, sorry, the morph ball upgrade. Now, morph balls are actually going to allow them to basically go into a small ball and go through tight little tunnels. And fairly straightforward, mainly just used for going to a few areas they couldn't go to before. But the main point now is that they're going to be heading to Sector 1. Now, Sector 1 is the first of the main 6 sectors in the game that you have to go through, and missile management is going to be very important in Sector 1. If they're not very careful, they will run out of missiles, and if they take enough health damage, they won't be able to get missile drops easily. And because of the lack of charge beam for the first half of Sector 1, they really want to make sure they have missiles to deal with everything. If they don't have enough missiles by the time they get to the eye door, they'll actually have to go in and farm for missiles somewhere else. Both runners are in sync right now, not letting either of them have a lead at the moment.
And both runners did also end up getting the main deck missile, which will give them a little bit more leniency with their missile management in Sector 1, ensuring a little bit safer route.
Yeah, with the main deck missile, they definitely want to be as concerned about their health, so that'll be a big help to them throughout Sector 1. Although grabbing that extra missile loses time, it definitely helps with Sector 1 consistency, so our runners will definitely get a lot of usage out of that. Better for them to waste time getting an extra missile tank than to get to the eye door and not be able to finish it off.
Agreed. Plus, don't they save a little bit of time later in the run on the Netroid fight?
Yeah, so the time loss isn't as bad as it could be because, as Flipside mentioned, they're going to have a fight against a boss fight later that needs a ton of missiles to kill. So it's not a horrible time loss. I may have exaggerated that a little bit. It's really not that bad of a time loss for them, especially with the time save they'll have on that boss. You know, MetroidMaster just ever so slightly in the lead right now, but literally one room ahead. So again, not letting himself fall too far behind. slenderMax is keeping it close right now. It almost looks like both runners are... Almost looks like you're watching the same stream, just delayed. Alright, so it looks like slenderMax took a bit more damage than he probably intended to by running into that barrier. And that might become a problem later, but like we mentioned, both runners grabbed the main deck missile, which is going to be a huge help in missile management. And you can see there, like, easily just one room put MetroidMaster at about the same health that slenderMax is at now. So they're pretty much even going into the pirate shaft. The shaft's a little bit annoying because the number of pirates in the wall is random. But ideally, most runners will tend to shoot 3 missiles, and generally that's enough to cover most of the pirate luck there. You can also morph in midair to slow your fall down there, so that can help you deal with any extra pirates that show up. Again, both runners neck and neck right now. Looks like the gap between MetroidMaster and slenderMax is closed a little bit there. slenderMax catching up just a little bit, and now he's pretty much right behind MetroidMaster. Oh, unfortunately, he has a bit of bad luck on that stabilizer's position there. Not too much you can do about that, so it looks like slenderMax is going to fall a little bit more behind here. But it looks like slenderMax having a better pirate climb at the start here, so that's going to help him catch up a little bit. And although that may be a bit of an extreme example, you sort of saw what I was talking about there, where slenderMax just kept on getting those health drops in that room. Now, of course, with his health count now, he gets the missile drop from that enemy. And even if he had not grabbed the main deck missile, he actually would have been fine because you only need 3 missiles to deal with the Idor. Of course, now that he has more missiles, he may actually try and go for some doubles here and be able to get them. Looks like Slender had a bit of worse RNG there, put him a little bit farther behind. But now he's in the room as well, and we'll see if MetroidMaster can actually get any doubles on the I-Core here, or if slenderMax can. Now, getting doubles in these I-Cores is a lot harder than on the regular cores, because their only vulnerable point is that eye. So they need to make sure that both missiles hit that eye in the same frame. And that's a lot harder than the regular cores, because of the regular cores, their whole body is vulnerable, and you can just have 2 different parts of the body run into the missiles at the same time. Don't really have that option with these I-Doors. These I-Cores. Now the good news is both runners have the charge beam upgrade, and while they'll still be using missiles, the charge beam upgrade does make it a lot easier for them to kill enemies without expending missiles, so their missile management is going to become a lot easier now. So both runners have finished off the last stabilizer, with slenderMax getting the lead now. Now we're going to be seeing both runners going to be leaving Sector 1 and heading on to Sector 2 now. And again, neither runner is letting the other keep a lead for very long, it looks like. With MetroidMaster, again, not falling far behind slenderMax. Only a couple rooms behind right now. So now both runners are done with Sector 1, we're going to actually see them start heading into Sector 2. In Sector 2, they're going to be getting the bombs upgrade first, and the bombs upgrade is pretty straightforward. They're going to use it to break through a few obstacles and get to a few areas they need to get to before. Now, unfortunately, bombs in this game are not as useful as they were in the other Metroid games, so we won't really see them get to use them for infinite bomb jumping or tricks like that, unfortunately. But bombs are still useful for getting to certain areas and rooms, so we're still going to see bombs getting used plenty. Just a bit more limited in its utility than usual. Both runners almost done with the text box here, and they'll be going to on to this sector. It looks like, again, both of them are really keeping close to each other right now.
Though both runners have taken a bit of damage, MetroidMaster so than slenderMax, and Sector 2 can be quite a deadly one if done unoptimally.
Yeah, and we know that slenderMax actually takes a save there, right as Flipside brings that up. And there's definitely a good reason for that, and it's because of what Flipside said. This sector is incredibly dangerous. Each of these enemies you see on the wall actually do 45 damage if you run into them. So both slenderMax and MetroidMaster are going to be wanting very, very careful. Ooh. And those enemies can actually respawn from the X cores really fast, and we actually saw a smart move by MetroidMaster there, opting to jump over that Zoro instead of actually trying to shoot it as he runs into it. Still not out of the woods yet, though. He just barely has enough health to tank another hit. Also, slenderMax will be the first runner to get the bombs upgrade, just in this next room here. Alright, and both runners have the bombs upgrade, and we get to see slenderMax use them for the first time here. Gets a bad pattern leaving here, and he opts to just jump over that and damage boost his way through there. Looks like MetroidMaster gets a much more favorable pattern here, which is really good considering his health he has right now. You definitely don't want to get any bad patterns when you have low health, and this sector seems to enjoy doing that to runners, so... Thankfully, MetroidMaster didn't have to put up with any bad patterns or anything so far. And both our runners are coming up on the first boss and the main boss of Sector 2, which is Zazabi. Zazabi's a little bit of a nuisance because the way you defeat him is by he'll jump up and he'll start to slowly fall down towards you. And while he's doing that, you shoot him with charge beams and your missiles and move out of the way. Now, the unfortunate thing about Zazabi is that sometimes he'll jump and not do that. He can jump, he can do like what we call an empty jump 3 to 12 times where he'll just jump and not let you damage him. And unfortunately, this is just a bit of the RNG in early run they just had to kind of deal with here. But hopefully both runners will have similar luck here, so neither of them fall too far behind. As slenderMax is off to a great start, already has 0 jumps so far. See how slenderMax's fight goes on and how MetroidMaster's goes. Alright, looks like slenderMax having really good RNG, only had 2 jumps going to the 3rd phase here. Alright, looks like slenderMax got a 5 jump Zazabi, which is really good.
And MetroidMaster so far not so lucky, having a full 3 jumps first cycle.
Whew. Yeah, a bit of bad luck for MetroidMaster there, unfortunately. But still gets the first double on the core. We'll see if he can get a second one. Alright, he gets it. So even though he may have had a bit of bad RNG there, slenderMax was only able to get the first double, whereas MetroidMaster got both, so he gained back a little bit of that time loss there. And now both runners have high jump now, and high jump's pretty straightforward. It lets them jump higher, but it also allows them to jump in Morph Ball, which is really nice. You actually saw slenderMax do it there whenever he was in the previous room. And you'll see them get to use that a lot throughout the run. Being able to jump in Morph Ball tunnels without having to wait on a bomb is really nice when you're going through them. Now, of course, this is the first SAX encounter that our runner is going to run into. For this one, typically in any percent, you don't see runners go for trying to skip this encounter. Mostly because skipping it is pretty damaging if you mess it up. And generally, it means you die. It's very difficult to actually get spotted by the sax and get like shot with his ice beam unintentionally and still be able to survive. It's doable, but it's very difficult to do. So you generally don't see runners go for that. Looks like neither of our runner opted to try for it, which is definitely the smart play right now. Now we see, looks like slenderMax is the first person to get out of Sector 2. Looks like MetroidMaster's having a bit of trouble with going through that room there. But it looks like he's not staggered too far behind. He's still going to be getting pretty close to the nav room by the time slenderMax gets on the elevator. And now slenderMax is the first one in Sector 4. Now Sector 4 has been interesting because there's electrocuted water everywhere, and our runners actually have to walk through it at certain parts to actually save time, so you're going to see them take a bit of intentional damage. So while that's a problem, it's not really a huge amount of damage, but the main thing they want to be worried about is going to be the boss fight, which is Ceres. Ceres is a fairly annoying boss fight. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, after I got the charge beam upgrade, the charge beam actually works in 3 parts. Has a top part, a bottom part, and a flare. If you manage to hit an enemy with all 3 parts, you do a total of 26 damage to that enemy. Now, luckily, Ceres has 50 health. So if everything goes well, we're going to see our runners actually be able to kill the boss in 2 hits. Now, unfortunately, Ceres' first pattern is always the same, which makes it easy for the first pattern. But after that, he randomly picks between doing certain patterns. Now, once he starts a pattern, you know where he's going to go, but you don't know which pattern he's going to pick before he starts it. So our runner is going to have to react to his patterns and adjust appropriately. Hopefully, because if they miss their charge beam shot on him for the second round, they'll have to go for another round, and they don't want to have to do that. Yeah, movement through the sector is fairly tight because there are a lot of annoying areas, annoying enemy patterns, and moving optimally can be really annoying in a few spots. So as you can see there, slenderMax tried to shoot that missile to cover his jump up there, but the enemy was just slightly out of range and he wasn't able to do it, and that's sort of what I was talking about when I said they kind of have some annoying patterns to deal with, and a lot of times there's nothing you can do about it, but just do the best you can with what you get stuck with. And now slenderMax opting to take a save here. It looks like he's taken it safe throughout this run. There have definitely been a few people who have died in races so far, so slenderMax definitely wants to make sure that if he does die, he's able to recover pretty quickly. And again, he has a lead on MetroidMaster, which gives him a lot of freedom right now to actually take a few of those extra saves. Looks like slenderMax, believe he got the first shot off on Ceres. You can know right away because we'll see Ceres whenever he starts speed boosting around. His color will be gray and gold like that, or brownish gold, and you'll actually be able to verify that you did land the hit if he's that color. Looks like MetroidMaster is about to start the fight. We'll see how this goes. Alright, and slenderMax gets the 2 round. Let's see if MetroidMaster gets a similar fight. Not sure if that shot hit. We'll know for sure once Ceres stops speed boosting around. Oh, so MetroidMaster got it. Nice. Now at this point, he's just got to kind of wait for Ceres to give him a nice pattern and hopefully be able to deal with it. And it looks like he gets a pattern similar. Oh. Fortunately, he was not far enough on the monkey bars, but he manages to get a good shot down there, so he still gets the 2 round, which is nice. And he gets a starting double.
That will give slenderMax a bit more of a lead. But
it's definitely better than messing up and having to go for a 3rd round, though.
Definitely.
Oh no, MetroidMaster messes up the low height after going through here, and he's going to actually end up with a few missiles wasted here, which might be bad because the next sector... Oh, it looks like it's a lot of missile drops, though. But one thing to note, and you'll see slenderMax do this later on, is that you can actually do a Shine Spark, basically a pixel off the ground, and we're going to actually see slenderMax try and go for it, and we'll see if he gets it here. Looks like he gets it. All right. So these are called low height Shine Sparks, and there's actually one that we saw runners go for, and slenderMax got. That's right after Saris. And now that one's easy because there's a low ceiling that you can stand under, and you can basically mash A until you start to spark. But with the one we just saw slenderMax do, you have to manually time it, and that is not easy. Usually most runners, they'll either try and time it, they'll go into Morph Ball, and they'll either try to unmorph at the last second and then do the speed boost from there, or they'll try and land in Morph Ball, and after they bounce up from the high fall Morph Ball, they'll go back and they'll try and instantly do a Shine Spark. So there are a few different ways you can go for that trick there, but we managed to see slenderMax get it. And MetroidMaster opts to not go for it and instead just gets a speed boost here. Now we'll be seeing slenderMax is going to be leaving Sector 4 with MetroidMaster, again, still not too far behind. Looks like slenderMax will be the first person entering Sector 3. And now Sector 3 marks the start of the very first missile upgrade. Now the missile upgrade they'll be getting is called Super Missiles. Super Missiles are pretty straightforward. They increase the damage your missiles do, but they have another side effect that's going to be very relevant. Each missile upgrade you get in this game increases the acceleration of the missiles, and it also makes it so that your missiles have a longer cooldown time between firing them. Now with Super Missiles, of course, it's first upgrade, so it's not as bad, so it's not like going to be as impactful as it will be later on. But each of these upgrades, because of those two factors, will make getting doubles on Core X's a lot harder. And unfortunately, they are not going to get any easier throughout this run. And now we won't actually see slenderMax get to show that off in this sector because there is a boss fight in this sector, but you do not actually fight a Core X at the end of it. The boss just runs away. So we won't actually see slenderMax get to test that out yet, but he will be testing it out on the boss fight after this one. slenderMax got the security doors and is now going to be heading straight beelining for the Super Missile upgrade. Alright, so slenderMax did a bit of pause buffering there to get this trick here. And this is called Shine Break. Basically, right as you break a speed booster block, you can actually store a Shine Spark on it. And if you do that, you can do what we saw slenderMax do there and fall through the blocks with the Shine Spark active. So from there, slenderMax used it to Shine Spark up the shaft and save a bit of time. We'll actually see MetroidMaster is probably going to be going for it next, and we'll see if he manages to get it. Alright, MetroidMaster gets it. Unpause buffer. Nice. Alright, and we see slenderMax get the Super Missile upgrade here. And now he's going to be going into the box fight after he goes through a few rooms. Now, the box fight is pretty straightforward. He has two attacks, one where he jumps, and one where he shoots out these little fire pillars at you. Now, what slenderMax is going to do is he's going to evade those attacks while unloading as many missiles into the boss fight as possible. But he also wants to kill the boss fight really close to the right side. The boss has to actually walk off and jump up through the right side no matter what. So slenderMax wants to kill him over there so that way he doesn't have to worry as much about so he doesn't have to wait. Now, he wasn't able to get the boss fight as close as he wanted, so he has to wait a little bit here, but he's still not as bad as it could have been. The boss can be on the whole other side of the room, basically. So he finished off the fight pretty good, and the important thing here is that he has a lot of missiles leaving the boss fight. Now, after the boss fight, they're going to pretty much need to use 3 missiles in the next sector at the very start. So you don't want to actually run out of missiles too badly, because if you don't have a whole lot of missiles, you're going to have to do one of 2 things, both of which are generally considered, both of which are slower. So it looks like MetroMaster is also going to be leaving with a good missile count here. So it looks like neither of our runners are going to have to worry about that. There are a couple of ways to deal with the low missile count in the next sector, but it looks like our runners won't have to worry about doing that. Alright, and we see slenderMax has now officially left Sector 3 and is going to be heading to Sector 6. Sector 6 is a bit dangerous, and I think it'll be more of a problem for MetroidMaster than it will be for slenderMax right now. But there are a few enemies in there called Ice X's that do 69 damage if you run into them. Now, once they get the upgrade here, the Ice X's become harmless and they actually give them health. But until they get the upgrade, they're going to have to want to be careful about their health. And MetroidMaster's health is really low right now. In fact, if he gets hit by 1, it's game over. So MetroidMaster is going to be really safe going in this next sector. Now, luckily, the Ice X is going to be stunned by shooting them. So as long as he stuns them properly, he shouldn't have to worry about it. But again, you have to be careful because those Ice X's can be very sneaky. And there's one time in particular when he actually has to shoot one off screen, because it's going to be very difficult to actually shoot it once it shows up on screen. Now, this Ice X right here that we saw slenderMax shoot is actually the one I was talking about that MetroidMaster is going to really want to watch out for, because that one can very easily sneak up on you. Oh. So it looks like slenderMax made a bit of an early try and store that Shine Spark there, and that slowed him down just a little bit there. So you want to be careful as to break through both of those speed booster blocks so you can actually store the speed boost and do a Shine Spark at the bottom. slenderMax messed up a little bit there and wasn't able to get it, but he's made sure to quickly adjust there and Shine Spark through the blocks before losing his speed booster. So he definitely mitigated the harm that could have happened there. Alright, looks like MetroidMaster deals with that one Ice X okay, and at this point he should be home free here. Did not shoot the first Ice X, so you may want to watch out for that. But makes it through okay. Now we see MetroidMaster is going to be going on to the SAX encounter, which slenderMax went through. Now, this is going to be basically the first time we're actually going to see them try and skip the SAX encounter. And what they're going to do, and we already saw it on slenderMax's stream, but what they're going to do is they're going to actually wait for the SAX to power bomb out these blocks. And they're going to come out of the hole and shoot the SAX, which causes it to turn around and jump towards you. And while it's doing that, you jump up, and you go past it. And so we can see right there, MetroidMaster does it, and now it's going to be leaving this room. Alright, and we see here slenderMax has already started the next boss fight, which is the Mega Core X. And now the Mega Core X fight, if you do it perfectly, what you'll do is you'll start up in the top left corner of the screen, and you actually go through and jump up, and once you're inside of its hitbox, you'll actually go in and shoot it with the full charge beam blast, much like how they did with Ceres. And if they do it properly, they can kill the boss in 4 hits. But This boss can be very uncooperative, and if you manage, even if you mess up just a teeny little bit to the point where you don't even notice you mess up, sometimes the boss will just get out of place, and then it becomes a lot harder. So right there, now MetroidMaster has to deal with the boss coming from different directions, and that becomes a lot harder suddenly to get the quick kill on him. So MetroidMaster still managed to finish him off in pretty good hit numbers, so he's starting the Core X fight here, and again, this is the first fight where doubles become a lot harder to get. You see MetroidMaster try and go for them there, but wasn't able to get out 2 missiles in time. He goes for it there, but again, it becomes a lot harder to get those doubles on these boss fights. So now both the runners have the various suit upgrade, which is very helpful because not only does it reduce damage, it also lets them endure extreme temperatures, which is why now these Ice X's are completely harmless and actually give you a ton of health. Because of the various suit, they no longer damage you. Fun small little thing you may have noticed too is that in the first room after they get the various suit upgrade, all the Ice X's start heading towards them, and the reasoning for that is because the Ice X's don't actually know that you're like invulnerable to them now. And the very next room, they go back to normal behavior, or they go back to where they just try and run away from you, but it's a fun little neat little thing that they added in there where the Ice X's don't immediately realize that, hey, we can't damage her anymore. But the funny thing is, they can still be stunned, so our runners can actually exploit that to get some easy health drops if they want to. Because they're not done seeing the Ice X's, and we'll be seeing them at the start of the next sector as well. Right, and looks like slenderMax is going to Sector 5. And the first trip to Sector 5 is interesting because, well, the main thing they're going to have to be doing is they're going to be going through and first they're going to have to enable security doors, and then they're going to have to get the ice missile upgrade. Now, when they do this, they're basically going to be looping through the sector twice. And because of this, runners run a risk of getting lost or forgetting what they're supposed to do. And if that happens, that is definitely a big time loss. Now, luckily, the game gives you a few visual cues, or that if you successfully did everything. So if you don't see certain visual cues, you'll know you need to go back and you forgot to do something. So hopefully our runners won't miss those if they do mess up. And if they do mess up, hopefully they won't lose too much time from that, and they'll be able to notice the absence of the visual cues pretty quickly.
I don't think anybody has pulled a secret key this tournament.
No, and that's one thing that's really good too. We haven't seen anyone do that yet. So hopefully that trend will continue. So notably, some people in chat may have already noticed, may have already been talking about the next missile upgrade, but the ice missile upgrade is sometimes jokingly called the missile downgrade because when you get ice missiles, there are two problems with it. For one, your first missile shot, no matter what, will start to freeze enemies first, which means you can't one-hit enemies with it anymore. And two, it does the same thing the other missile upgrades do, and it increases the acceleration and increases the cooldown. So doubles become notably harder. And now the good thing about when you get ice missiles is that the very next sector actually lets you use them pretty significantly. So we're actually going to see our runners get to use the ice missiles and actually have them be useful in the next sector. But outside of that, there are a lot of spots where ice missiles can be more of a nuisance than a help, unfortunately. So it looks like slenderMax is going to be the first one to get ice missiles here. And luckily, he'll immediately get to use them in the next room. And now, interesting thing to know about Sector 5, they changed the layout of it with upgrades you get to actually let you use them right away. You'll actually see this, you'll see a layout change here when they get ice missiles, and that you'll see these pillar enemies start to show up. And then later on, when they come back with power bombs, you're actually going to see that enemy is going to be completely gone, and they're going to have to use power bombs to advance. And a lot of fusion sectors do this, where they partially change layout, or they completely change layout later on. Sector 5 has been interesting because it changes layout just slightly for your second trip, but for the last trip, it's very different than from the first two trips. Well, it looks like MetroidMaster has gotten the Atmos upgrade now and is going to be falling behind slenderMax, while slenderMax is getting out of here. Now, if you saw that enemy fly by in the background, that was one of the visual cues I was talking about. The fact that slenderMax sees that is a sign that he has basically done everything in the sector for this trip. So now he's going to be able to leave, and he's going to be heading into the emergency section. Emergency is a fun section for both runners and for chat here. It's jokingly called Emergency in Frankerzy, and for this section, they're going to be running against a timer to defeat another I-Core in Sector 3. Now, the timer is extremely lenient, and they're not going to run anywhere close to hitting it, but the notable thing about the timer is that because they have a timer, they can sort of see how well they're doing. And they can use that as like a reference point to see how good their emergency is doing, even if they don't have splits running. So it'll be interesting to see how MetroidMaster's emergency goes compared to slenderMax's, and we can actually see if its MetroidMaster may have gained some time or not. Now, for this entire emergency, you're going to see ice missiles used a lot. Now, it looks like slenderMax has a very good missile count going in, so he shouldn't have to worry about running out of missiles here. You really need, I believe it's 15 minimum, maybe off on that number. But slenderMax definitely has more than enough, and MetroidMaster also looks like he'll be having a very good missile count going into the emergency section. Messes up the fall a little bit there. slenderMax unable to kill that stretchy on his way down, so loses a bit of time to that. So he's keeping his movement really smooth throughout this room. And now those fire pillars that come out of the ground can sometimes be really annoying, because if they hit you in the wrong spot and you're not prepared for it, you'll get knocked off completely and have to go all the way back around. Luckily, it looks like slenderMax didn't have any trouble with that, so he's able to get through that room pretty quickly. Now slenderMax has got pretty good pace going through here. He's going to go ahead and deal with this stretchy here. And there are a lot of enemies in this area that you generally want to have Ice Beam for, because the game, a lot of them need to be frozen to be less annoying, or you need to hit them with a Charge Beam. So Ice Missiles have a lot of utility in this area. Having a bit of trouble freezing that side hopper. Ooh. Alright, makes it up okay, though. Lost a bit of time because of that, unfortunately. See what his final time is whenever he gets the wide beam upgrade. Unable to get any doubles on this Korax, unfortunately. I mean, it's like I said earlier, each of those upgrades makes it even harder, and they've already gotten 2 upgrades since the vanilla missiles, so makes life much more difficult for them to deal with these I-Cores. Seeing how MetroidMasters goes. So he gets going into the area about the same time as slenderMax did. Maybe a second or two behind here. Tries to go for a double there, unfortunately unable to get it. And And MetroidMaster also does not get any doubles here, so it looks like he's going to be finishing with a 4, pretty much a 418, but just barely a 417. Now the wide beam upgrade that each of our runners have now is mainly important because it increases your damage, but it does have a much larger area that it actually hits things on, and that can be really nice for dealing with multiple blocks at once instead of having to try and aim your charge beam super precise. Now, it's actually funny because we're actually going to see our runners use... Charge is going to be using missiles to kill bosses for a little bit here. So we're not actually going to see the wide beam get used a whole lot, but they still will be using it a little bit. Alright, looks like MetroidMaster is just about to leave the sector as slenderMax is getting out of it. Now, what slenderMax has to do now is he gets to go save the animals. Unlike in Super Metroid, this sequence is not skippable, and the animals are complete RNG of how quickly they actually get out of their little habitat they're in. So, we like to joke that if you don't save them in Super, they come back and bite you with bad RNG in this game. Although, as far as I know, there is absolutely no evidence supporting that. But either way, slenderMax is going to have to do a few tricks on his way up there. We'll talk about those a bit whenever he gets a bit closer to them, but we'll see slenderMax probably pick up a couple of missiles here, and he's going to just go through and have a few fun things to do along the way. Now at the top of this elevator shaft, slenderMax is going to be doing what's called a stretchy climb. And the stretchy climb, there's a few different ways to do it, and usually the more difficult the way is, the faster it is. And now slenderMax opts to try and go for a jump extend there. Just one of the commonly used strats for that area. But basically, he just wants to climb up to the top of this room using those two stretchies as platforms. Now the next trick he just did there was a different type of shine break. It's basically a shine break, but you space yourself so that your speed booster actually activates basically right as you're going over the last block. And by doing that, you don't fall through the block, but you still break the speed booster. And it looks like, man, it looks like slenderMax got really good animals RNG there from what I could see. So it's really good. Animals can definitely be wildly inconsistent with their luck you get with them, so that's really good to see him get some good RNG there. We see MetroidMaster go through the vanilla way of going through that room, which is just lure the stretchies out and go through and just freeze them right as they fully extend. Now, it looks like MetroidMaster opted not to go for the other setup there and tried to do the shine break the hard way, but was unable to get it. So he has to climb through that room the hard way, unfortunately. Now we'll see how his RNG goes. Not ideal RNG, but not too bad of RNG either. So it looks like MetroidMaster got pretty decent RNG leaving there. So now he's going to be going through and going to be grabbing this missile tank as well as I believe one more on his way out. After getting this missile tank slenderMax is about to get, our runners get to have some fun and go back to Sector 5 again. This time to get the power bomb upgrade. And now the power bomb upgrade is pretty straightforward. It basically gives them a huge area of effect bomb, and that can expose some item locations and destroys power bomb blocks. And that's mostly where we're going to see them used for. But there are a few spots where you can use power bombs to kill a lot of enemies at once and actually make moving through a room a bit easier. And we'll actually see them use that pretty soon. Looks like both Forerunners are on their way to Sector 5, with looks like MetroidMaster is about to get to go pick up a missile tank, and then we'll be following right behind slenderMax and going into Sector 5.
With, mind you, Adam tactfully telling you about a data room we've already seen.
Yeah, notably Sector 5 is like the only sector you actually go back to like the same data room twice. And technically speaking, I think you go back there a third time, but it's not active anymore, unfortunately. So you have to go and fight the boss to get the upgrade instead. Although the third time, Adam isn't really ordering you to go get a missile, to go get an upgrade. He's just saying that, hey, everything's getting wrecked. So in this room, slenderMax gets to use his newly acquired power bombs to get through this encounter without the SAX quicker. Ooh. It's like he stuttered a little bit there and had a bit of trouble getting out of that room, but you want to be really careful because the Sax is shooting its ice wave plasma beam combo at you. And if you get hit by it, it can definitely deal a lot of damage if you're not careful.
I believe we've had a couple of unfortunate deaths to that particular SAX encounter.
Yeah, unfortunately, it can definitely be a run killer. But it looks like slenderMax gets out okay and is literally full health leaving here, so he's definitely going to be well off. Now we'll see how MetroidMaster's encounter goes. Now, an important thing to note, and that you'll see here, is that MetroidMaster is actually going to spring ball up into this hole here, and the reason for that is because while a power bomb is going off, you cannot grab ledges. That was a really nice dodge there by the end too, but you generally want to be aware of that because if you lay a power bomb or something and you try to grab a ledge, you're not going to be able to do it, and in some cases that can definitely get you killed. So you want to be aware of that fact every time you're going through there and make sure that you don't accidentally do something such as throwing down a power bomb and trying to grab a ledge in an area where you're really tight on timing. So right there is an example on slenderMax's screen of where you can use power bombs to destroy multiple enemies at once, and that helped him not have to worry about dealing with those other enemies there. And it's really convenient too because you're already in the morph ball tunnel, so no need to worry about that. Oh, and slenderMax, he opts to unable to get the speed boost there, or he just opts to get this missile. I couldn't really tell if he didn't notice or if he just stopped it to get the missile anyway, but
it looked like he got hit by a couple of the spitters, which prevented him from being able to get the speed booster.
Yeah, he got the speed booster last second. If he hadn't jumped, he would have actually went through, but I don't think he expected to get it, so he just... If you don't get that speed booster, you have to grab that missile anyway and lay that power bomb. So I believe slenderMax wasn't really sure if he'd gotten it or not, and he just assumed that he didn't get it, so he just did a jump there and laid a power bomb. We see MetroidMaster not far behind, going to be going through the spitter room pretty soon. And now slenderMax gets to go to the wonderful boss fight known as Yakuza. Now, Yakuza is a very unfortunate boss fight because there's a bit of RNG at the start. The very start of the boss fight, they're actually going to go in and they're going to unload a few missiles and a charge shot into them at the very beginning. And they're going to use like either a visual or audio cue to time themselves for that. But after that, the boss can go around the screen between 1 to 4 rounds. And you generally want to have a 1 round because if you have more than that, well, you lose time. The downside is if you didn't squeeze enough missiles and the charge shot in at the very start of the fight, if you didn't do enough damage, you will have to do it again. So you definitely don't want to screw up that introduction start, because if you do screw it up, then you've wasted even more time, and the time you lose is going to be in the hands of RNG. So hopefully native runners won't mess that up at the very start here.
It is quite unfortunate that a lot of the bosses in this game are RNG dependent and can easily turn a race one way or the other.
Yeah, that's one thing. Towards the end of the game, it gets a lot better. I think the starting areas are when it's really egregious because you have boss fights like Ceres and Zazubi, but there's still some boss fights like Yakuza at the end. But after this, for the most part, our runners won't really be slowed down by RNG. Notice slenderMax did put enough missiles in at the start, so he's going to be fighting the Yakuza here. Now, one thing to note, his missiles actually do less damage than the charge beam does right now, but unfortunately the charge beam takes forever to charge, and if you do this fight optimally, it's actually faster to just unload missiles on the boss fight instead. Not to mention, too, with charge beam, it can be very difficult to land a perfectly timed shot off. Now, the good thing about it in this fight, and why I think we see slenderMax using it here, is because it pretty much destroys those little things that we see Yakuza spitting out. So if you're running low on health or worried about your health, you can switch to using the charge beam there and actually help you out with the fight a little bit. Alright, and looks like slenderMax gets a double on the boss fight, which is going to speed it up a little bit, and then now he gets the space jump upgrade, while MetroidMaster goes in the boss fight himself. Now, it looks like MetroidMaster did not put enough missiles in at the start, so he had to go an extra round there, but it's going to be continuing the space jump part of the fight. Now, this part of the fight is really difficult to do perfectly because with charge beam, it has a huge area, so it's really easy to land the hit. But with missiles, you have to be much more precise. So even though it's faster, it's a lot more skill intensive, and it's very easy to mess up. Unfortunately, Yakuza's ways that he jumps around the screen are random, so you can't really predict it. Now, slenderMax looks like MetroidMaster also getting a double there, so both of them got 1 double on that boss fight. And now slenderMax gets to do the only SAX encounter of the game where you're actually forced to try and run away. And now, normally, you would actually go into the next room and be able to wait for the SAX to turn around and leave. But we're speedrunners. We don't like doing things the slow way. So instead, our runners actually went in and they go down that secret passageway with which the SAX cannot follow them down, and they leave. Now, flip side, I mentioned this earlier, but there's a boss fight that we're about to see slenderMax fight that having a ton of missiles on is really useful for. Now, this boss fight is called Nethereye, and the boss fight itself is pretty straightforward. The first phase of the fight, Nethereye will sit over here, and basically he'll just have his flowers shoot their little pollen at you. But by standing in the spot where slenderMax is, you literally cannot get hit by them. And now, I think slenderMax may be being a bit excessive here. You basically want to have a certain number of missiles for this fight. If you don't have a certain number of missiles, you have to trade them in with charge and power bomb placements. So, depending on how you want the fight to go, if you want to have enough missiles left over, then you may want to be a bit more conservative. with your missile, with how many missiles you throw in there.
And considering the slenderMax got 45 missiles and had 50 missiles going into this fight, I don't think he actually needed to use a power bomb or charge shot at all. Correct me if I'm wrong on that
I believe
one.
it's 48 is the number of missiles you actually need to finish off the fight for good there. But as said, like, if you do the fight optimally, you won't get hit. And then, ooh, MetroidMaster not close enough with that charge shot to one-hit the eye door, so you had to get a beam there. Yeah, if you do the fight optimally, you'll have enough you just unload your missiles on it, and if you don't, and then of course any extra charge or power bomb placements you have to put down, and then you just get missiles from the drops the enemy leaves. But if you take damage, you can't guarantee missile drops, and then it becomes a problem. And in that scenario, you may, like, if you see yourself take damage, you may just want to switch to using some charged and power bombs so that you don't run out. Now we see here MetroidMaster running out of his missiles there on the boss fight. So he's having to lay down a few charge beams here and probably going to lay down a few power bombs maybe. And you can see there, even with him having really good health, he still was only able to get one missile drop from that. Now luckily he got full health from that, so now he's back up to the full missile count. Or to the full health count, so now he's getting full missile drops. Going to finish off the fight without going for any doubles there. And now both MetroidMaster and slenderMax have the Plasma Beam upgrade. Now Plasma Beam is a fun upgrade because it makes it so that your beam no longer does just a raw amount of damage. Rather, it does damage for every frame it's in an enemy. Now, if that sounds incredibly powerful, it is. Although the damage it does is reduced, like the individual damage does from one shot is reduced, because of the damage that it does through every frame of an enemy, the actual damage it does is a lot higher. Now, the game devs were probably aware of this, and the first couple of boss fights we see right after this are not going to be as vulnerable to it. In fact, the next boss fight we see, which is Nightmare, is basically only vulnerable for like a frame. So you only really do the damage from one hit with it. And the boss fight after that is going to be a bit more vulnerable, but it's still going to just not take a whole lot of damage from it if you space it poorly. And shooting it with missiles will just be quicker anyway. So you won't actually see this get abused until the Ridley fight later on. And that's actually one thing. The Ridley fight, it's not... You'd get another beam upgrade before then, but it's really the effect of the Plasma Beam that makes that fight so quick with the charge beam. So I guess I'll just talk to you guys more about the next boss fight, which is Nightmare. And Nightmare can be a fairly tough fight. Now, they're going to be 3 phases to Nightmare before they get to the Core X phase. And the first couple of phases are fairly easy to deal with. In fact, the second phase is basically the same as the first phase, but with a bit more of a lower gravity effect, which basically makes it act like the water physics almost. And then the third phase is when things get interesting. When they get to the third phase of the fight, Nightmare's gravity is going to return to normal, but Nightmare is going to start running around the screen really quickly. And our runners are going to have to kind of manipulate his movement to actually get him in a position where they can damage him properly. Now at the start, you'll see him go, like I said, they're already done with the first and second phase, so this is already on the third phase. But you see Nightmare starts over there and just starts coming towards you while you're sitting on the ladder. And once they get to the end of this, they're going to try and like lure him around so he stops over there and they can unload on him with missiles again. Now, unfortunately, slenderMax did not lure him in a good spot and has to go down here and hit him this way. But he's still able to finish off the boss fight. And he is now going to be fighting the Core X. Now looks like a MetroidMaster is just a few runes 4. We'll see how his fight goes. slenderMax does get a double there, so that's nice. Speed up that fight just a little bit here.
something interesting to note that now that I'm seeing MetroidMaster grab the E-Tank, both of our runners have grabbed the E-Tank right before Nightmare. This should give them enough health for the oncoming Sector 4, as well as the future bosses.
Yeah, so the area that slenderMax is basically about to be in now is what's commonly called Lower Sector 4. And I said this before, it's pretty much the most dangerous area where you're not fighting a boss. A lot of the enemies do a good chunk of damage, and a lot of times it's very easy to die in this sector if you're not careful. And unfortunately, a lot of the enemies give you some patterns that are not fun to deal with, so... Looks like a MetroidMaster lands Nightmare a little bit too close to the side. I don't know if he'll be able to... Yeah, unable to actually finish him off there, which might be bad. We'll see how MetroidMaster's health goes here. Alright, he's good. Just only one missile away, nice. Yeah, so that fight can be very dangerous if you're in a position where you mess up luring him around. Looks like MetroidMaster did not need that extra E-Tank yet, so... Doesn't look like he gets any doubles in the Core X fights. He's going to be finishing it right about now. Now, he does get the sweet spot there, it looks like, and looks like he'll be going on to Lower Sector 4, right behind slenderMax here. Now, although slenderMax's lead has widened a little bit, there's still a chance he could die in this run, and if that happens, he will definitely get knocked behind MetroidMaster. Because if I remember correctly, his last save was right before Yakuza. Now, if both runners do die, then slenderMax would be in an advantage because of where his save is. But if only he dies, he's probably not going to be able to catch back up to MetroidMaster at this point. So he wants to be really aware of how much health damage he takes here. Alright, so slenderMax has made it through the area known as Lower Sector 4 with MetroidMaster about halfway through there. And now slenderMax has gotten diffusion missiles. You already sort of saw what they do there. Diffusion missiles allow you to sort of charge up your missile shot, and whenever you release it, it lets out a wave of ice missiles, energy basically, that destroys any missile blocks in the way and freezes any enemies it comes in contact with. Now, this doesn't actually... The actual charge shot part doesn't make it function like your charge beam. It does the same damage regardless, but that area of effect that it gives you can be very useful for dealing with a few spots. And we'll definitely see slenderMax use it in a few areas, not just to deal with enemies, but to actually break missile blocks that would be a bit more difficult to hit. Alright, and it looks like MetroidMaster is now done with Lower Sector 4 and is going to be getting a Fusion Missile upgrade as well. Now, one thing to note too is that MetroidMaster actually left there with a much better health than slenderMax did, so that may be advantageous for him. We'll have to see though, because this next area, again, at this point, there isn't really a huge worry about RNG, so... Ideally, if slenderMax plays well, and he is going to be able to get a few Ice X's along the way too, he shouldn't have to worry about his health. Oh, looks like slenderMax messed up something. I'm not really sure what happened there. It looks like he just messed up his charge there and was not able to get the Shrine Spark. And he does take a safety save before the Xbox fight. And again, you know, him having the lead definitely gives him the time to do that. But it will also help out in the event that he dies. Now, this fight is a bit different from the last time they fought this boss, in that in the start of the fight, the box will now actually be shooting missiles at them instead of laying its fire pillars. And the ceiling is also lower, so avoiding his jumping attacks become a bit harder. And it's also more difficult to hit those diagonal shots. Now, it looks like slenderMax did a really good fight there. She's going to go right into the wave core. And you'll notice he isn't really going for doubles in this core, and the main reason for that is because getting wave core doubles is incredibly difficult and not really something you'll ever see any runners go for. And if you went for them, the setup you do is a little bit slower, so if you can't get them, you're going to be losing even more time. So as a result of that, we didn't really see slenderMax go for those. But he does get the wave beam upgrade, which main difference here, wave beam just makes it so that he can now shoot through walls, and that'll be useful to get to a few areas he couldn't get to before. And can actually help you deal with some enemies, being able to not expose yourself to them while still being able to damage them. Alright, and we see MetroidMaster start up the fight. Unable to get that first diagonal shot there. See how he does in this next few shots here. Getting diagonals in this boss fight is a lot harder than the first time around, so it's definitely something that even being slightly off in your spacing, how many pixels off can make a difference. The good news about this boss fight is he doesn't take a whole lot of missiles to kill, so having those extra missiles there can actually go a long way in making sure you have enough to deal with the Core X properly at the end. MetroidMaster may want to be careful here. He still has plenty of health, but if you get too out of line, the water can damage you because it's electrified. Alright, but looks like MetroidMaster finished off the fight okay. Should be able to take down the Core X. Is more than enough missiles, and don't believe the wave does enough damage to actually kill him offhand. Alright, and MetroidMaster is now done with it, and while he's doing that, slenderMax is heading on to go fight Ridley.
Warning, no entry without authorization. Warning, no entry without authorization. Warning, no entry without authorization. Warning, no entry without authorization.
Now at this point we are coming up to the end of the run here, and we are going down to the last three boss fights, and that's going to be the Ridley fight, the SAX fight, and the Omega Metroid fight. And now the Ridley fight can be a bit of a dangerous boss fight because Ridley can be a fairly annoying boss fight to deal with, and what they're going to try and do is they're going to try and keep Ridley in one corner of the screen while only hitting him with diagonal wave beam shots while he is facing towards them. And now this is the boss fight I mentioned where you actually get to take advantage of that plasma beam upgrade finally, because the more time it's in Ridley, the more damage you do with your shot. In the previous boss fights, it was either impossible in the case of Nightmare or just really difficult in the case of Box to actually take advantage of it. So now our runners will actually be using the charge beam for really most of this fight. We may see them try and land a charge shot followed quickly by another missile shot, and that's the best way to damage Ridley, but again, the main point here is going to be that charge beam. slenderMax had a good start. You generally want Ridley to be changing to his second color after your first 4 shots, and that happened for slenderMax. And so far he's having good luck at grab there. You definitely don't want to get grabbed by Ridley because you take a lot of damage if that happens, and can be really annoying to get out of it because if Ridley's not feeling nice, he won't let go of you. But it looks like slenderMax finishes that. Now he's going to be finishing off the Corex here, so it's a really good fight for slenderMax. Looks like he may have got one double there at the very end. Nice. Alright, and he gets the screw attack upgrade, which is going to be realistically the last upgrade of the game. There's technically one more, but they'll be getting it pretty much at the tail end. And now screw attack in this game is incredibly overpowered because it's pretty much invulnerable to everything. The only real enemy that becomes a threat to it is, I believe, the Omega is immune to it, and also the SAX's first phase can actually go right through it with its own version of screw attack. The second phase may also be able to as well, but because of the way you kill the second phase, it doesn't really become an issue. But I mean, other than that, the screw attack upgrade is incredibly powerful. And they can actually completely avoid damage in the third phase and the Corex phase with it because the SAX's Ice Beam and the Corex itself do not break through screw attack. So if you ever get to the Corex part, you know, have a whole lot of health, that's a very easy way you can actually chill with the boss because not only does the boss drop drops whenever you go through it with the screw attack, as I said, it can't damage you. So if either of our runners get low on health during the third phase of that fight, we may actually see them take advantage of that to kind of speed up and deal with the fight a bit better. So MetroidMaster is having a bit of trouble with this fight. He hasn't gotten grabbed yet. Good job. So that was a solid fight there. And it's going to be finishing off Corex, and he's also going to have the screw attack upgrade. Now at this point, slenderMax is in what I would call the most fun section of the game, aka the longest text box in the entire game. So slenderMax is going to be here for a while, and I would not be surprised if we ended up seeing both runners in the text box at the same time. I don't think we'll see it happen, but it definitely can happen. So we'll see how that goes. Also, MetroidMaster gets Pacifist. Doesn't really save any time, but it's a neat little thing that you can leave that room without damaging any of those rippers. Doesn't really save any time, it's just a neat little thing you can do. It's like we might just see slenderMax just barely get out of this text box before MetroidMaster gets over there.
This cutscene is definitely one of the areas in which the Japanese text is a blessing.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the exact length, but it's definitely a few minutes here. But it looks like slenderMax is going to get out of it right before MetroidMaster gets up there, so wasn't quite able to catch up, but got really close. Now, slenderMax is going to be at the final stretch of the game, and he's going to be fighting the second to final boss of the game, the Sax. Now, the SAX fight, or Sax, is fairly straightforward. If you do it properly, the boss is fairly harmless, but it's not easy to do it properly, unfortunately. The first phase of the fight can be stun locked, but it's not the easiest timing in the world to get down. And so we may not be able to see we may see slenderMax try and pull that off, but if he doesn't, he may opt for an alternative strat. The SAX's Ice Beam does do a lot of damage, so if you can't get the stun lock down properly, a lot of times you'll get hit with it. And so in some cases it might just be better to try and do a different strat on the SAX instead of risking death. So it looks like we're going to see slenderMax continue his trend of saving here. So he's going to make sure that even if he dies at this point, he won't get sent too far back. Now again, I don't think he'll be able to catch up if MetroidMaster dies, but if he does die, he will not be too far behind him. Alright, and it looks like slenderMax gets the stun lock there, so we're going right into the second phase. The second phase, fairly short. And usually if you do it perfectly, you get it in 2 hits. If not, it may take 3 or 4, but slenderMax gets through that pretty quickly. Now, looks like it's going to be going for opt for a safety strat here. Now, you can do doubles in this Ice Core X, but you can't do them with this setup. So this is mainly just a safety setup here, so he doesn't have to worry about getting hit with the Ice Beam.
And considering how much damage Ice Beam does, I definitely don't disagree with the choice.
Yeah, and especially if you can't get the doubles, it's just not worth it. The setup for getting doubles would probably slow you down more than just doing a strat like that would. Right, and slenderMax is now going into the escape. We'll see how the Omega Metroid fight goes, but it looks like he has it in the bag almost here. Alright, now for this boss fight, there is a quick kill on it. Of course, there's a little bit of a cutscene we have to see first, but it's like a MetroidMaster is actually opting to do the SAX fight a different way instead of going for the stun lock here. Now, I think this version of the fight's a bit dangerous because if you mistime one of your shots and the SAX is doing a screw attack, the SAX will screw attack right through that hit, and then, well, you'll get ice beamed. Looks like MetroidMaster's having an easy time there. And now we'll see if slenderMax can get the quick kill here. It looks like he got it. Alright. slenderMax has now finished the run. Just gotta wait for the ship to pick him up. And MetroidMaster not too far behind though. He's finishing up the SAX fight and now is on the Ice Core phase. Looks like he tries to go for a double there. I don't believe he got it. See at the end. Okay, that's 3 hits so far. 4 hits. If this next hit actually finishes it off, then he got a double. Doesn't look like he did though. So no doubles that fight, but still finished off the Ice Core X, no problem. And now MetroidMaster is going to be going right behind him while slenderMax has finished the run. So congratulations to slenderMax for completing the race and for winning. Although MetroidMaster did not win, he put up a really good fight. He is not too far behind slenderMax here. Alright, time to see how MetroidMaster's Omega fight goes.
Minute to destination.
Oh, misses the Quicksil setup there, but still manages to, get swiped again. You want to be careful because each of his boss fight swipes do 100 damage, so MetroidMaster gets swiped too harshly. Yeah, you generally don't want to keep charging in there. You want to fire a few shots and back up so you do not get swiped.
Ooh. MetroidMaster dangerously low on health.
Alright, he does get through the fight though. Congratulations, MetroidMaster finishes in 2nd place. Although he is now out of the tournament, still put up a really good fight in his last match. And according to SRL, he did get a race PB, so good improvement there. Alright guys, well, believe we have another race that's set to start fairly soon, so I don't think we'll have time for an interview here. I think they're going to want to move right into the next race. Unfortunately, I will have to be leaving you guys alone with Flipside for a little bit, but there will be someone coming in to replace me. But in the meantime, I hope you guys continue to watch because Fusion is not stopping anytime soon. We still have one big 4-way race coming up right now. And then after that, we'll have 2 more races later on the day, one of which I'll be in. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, but I think I'm going to go ahead and head on out of here. See you guys whenever I race later.
Definitely one to catch.